Welcome back to the channel. I'm Amelia, and if you're new here, this is the channel where I actually explain from men's perspective how male attraction works. I'll never tell you what you want to hear, just to make you feel good. Just honest, psychology-grounded insight into how men think, feel, and communicate desire. Today we're getting into something most women completely misread or miss entirely. There's a version of missing someone that has nothing to do with how much you texted him or how available you were. It doesn't come from grand gestures or perfectly timed vulnerability. It's quieter than that and a lot more interesting. Most people think a man misses a woman because she pulled away, played hard to get, or went silent for a few days. And while space does something, that alone isn't the whole picture. Because plenty of women have gone quiet, and all he felt was relief. So clearly, something has to exist before the absence for the absence to mean anything. What actually makes a man miss someone isn't about tactics. It's about what she left behind in his nervous system, the emotional residue of an experience his brain hasn't finished processing. And that is a very different conversation. There are 3 specific things that create that kind of longing, the kind that shows up at random on a Tuesday, mid-conversation with someone else, when something reminds him of her and he can't quite explain why. Not 3 tricks. 3 psychological realities about how the male brain registers connection, presence, and loss. And at least one of them is probably not what you're expecting. 1. Emotional incompleteness. The open loop effect. The human brain has a deeply uncomfortable relationship with things that are unfinished. Not painful things, not bad things, just unfinished ones. There's something in our wiring that keeps pulling attention back to experiences that didn't reach a conclusion. And in the context of attraction, this becomes one of the most powerful and least talked about forces at play. Think about a conversation that ended right at the good part. Not because anyone was being strategic about it, just because the moment naturally closed before everything was said. He's driving home, and his mind keeps going back to it. Not obsessively, just returning. Like a tab left open in the background. That tab stays open until something resolves it, and if nothing does, it just keeps running. This is what emotional incompleteness does. When a woman shares something real but doesn't over-explain it, when a moment between them builds and then simply ends rather than being dissected and summarized, his brain files it under unfinished business. And unfinished business gets revisited. The problem is that a lot of women, without realizing it, close every loop. They over-communicate, over-clarify, wrap every moment in a bow and hand it in fully processed, which emotionally is generous. But it leaves nothing for his mind to return to. Every question answered, every feeling explained, every silence filled. His nervous system receives it all, processes it completely, and then moves on. There's nothing left to reach for. It's not about being withholding. It's about allowing some things to breathe. Ending a conversation when it's still good rather than running it into the ground. Letting a moment land without immediately narrating it. Sharing something layered without handing him the full interpretation of it. His brain does the rest, and that process of his brain doing the rest is exactly where missing begins. A date that ends at the most interesting point of a conversation is far more memorable than one that ends 2 hours after the energy peaked. Not because she left strategically, but because the experience never fully closed. And an experience that never fully closed has a way of staying with a person far longer than one that did. 2. The presence he can't fully decode. There is a specific kind of woman that men find genuinely difficult to stop thinking about, and she is not the one who is cold, unavailable, or playing games. She is warm. She is present. She laughs easily and engages genuinely. But there is something about her that he cannot quite fully land on, and that gap between what he feels and what he can explain is where the pull lives. The male brain, when it encounters something it finds compelling, does what any pattern recognition system does. It tries to categorize it. He wants to understand what she is to him, what she represents, where she fits. And when a woman is emotionally available but not emotionally transparent in that desperate, oversharing way, his system keeps working on her. Not because she is confusing, but because she is layered. There is always something just slightly more to her than what he has seen so far, and that perception keeps his attention oriented in her direction. This is completely different from playing hot and cold. Hot and cold creates anxiety, not longing. What creates longing is consistent warmth with genuine depth, the sense that she is real, that she is interested, but that she also has an interior life that does not depend on his attention to stay full. That combination is surprisingly rare, and the male nervous system registers its rarity even when his conscious mind has not caught up yet. The attachment system is relevant here. When connection is constant and completely predictable, the brain starts to process it as background noise. Not because the person isn't valued, but because certainty removes the neurological engagement that novelty and mild unpredictability create. This is not about manufacturing distance. It is about being a full person whose presence carries weight precisely because it is not performing for him. A woman who is genuinely interested but not anxiously available, who gives him something real without giving him everything at once, who can sit in a moment without needing to define what the moment means. That woman occupies a different category in his mind. She does not read like a puzzle he needs to solve. She reads like an experience he has not finished having yet. And that feeling, that sense of something still ahead, is what keeps his mind returning to her long after she has left the room. 3. The version of himself he was around her. This one tends to catch people off guard because the assumption is always that a man misses the woman. And he does. But underneath that, often running much deeper than that, is something else entirely. He misses who he was when he was with her. This is not a small thing. Identity is one of the most powerful psychological forces in a human being. The way we feel about ourselves, the version of ourselves that shows up in different environments and with different people, that is not static. It shifts depending on context, and certain people have a way of drawing out versions of us that we do not access anywhere else. When that person leaves, that version of ourselves goes with them. And that loss registers in a way that is genuinely hard to name, which is partly why it hits so quietly and so deep. Think about a man who, around a particular woman, felt sharper, more at ease. Like he could say the thing he was actually thinking instead of the edited version. Maybe she challenged him in a way that felt good rather than threatening, pushed back on something he said, and he respected it instead of getting defensive. Maybe she made him laugh in a way that felt unguarded, the kind of laugh that comes out before the self-monitoring kicks in. His ego was not on high alert around her. His overthinking had, for once, clocked out early. And he did not fully register how rare that was until it was gone. The Stoic principle buried in this is about self-possession, but here it becomes relevant from the outside in. A woman who is secure enough in herself that she does not need him to perform, does not reward the filtered version of him, and responds most warmly to the parts of him that are most real. That woman does something to a man's sense of self that is hard to replicate. She becomes associated with a feeling of internal ease that he may not find in many other places. And the brain, which is always cataloging what makes us feel good versus what makes us feel contracted, remembers that association clearly. It is usually a combination of things: the ease, the feeling of being genuinely seen rather than assessed, the sense that he did not have to manage her emotions while also managing his own. That kind of relational experience is not common. Most interactions carry some level of social performance, some degree of self-monitoring. When a woman creates a space where that drops, even partially, she becomes someone his nervous system associates with relief. And relief, in a world that asks a lot of men emotionally while giving them few places to put it, is an extraordinarily powerful thing to be associated with. When she is no longer there, the absence is not just her absence. It is the absence of that version of him. And that is the kind of missing that does not fade quickly, does not get replaced easily, and tends to surface at the most unexpected moments, because it is not really about her being gone. It is about him feeling, in some quiet corner of himself, a little less like that version of himself without her around. Conclusion: these 3 things that loop his mind keeps returning to, the presence he could feel but never fully decode, and the version of himself that only showed up around her, none of them are about strategy. They are not techniques. They are the natural result of a woman who is genuinely layered, genuinely present, and genuinely secure in herself. That kind of woman does not just get missed. She gets remembered in a way that is difficult to explain and even harder to replace. If any of this resonated with something you have experienced or observed, drop it in the comments. I read them, and I will be reaching out. Like this video if it gave you something real, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and if you are not subscribed yet, do that now. That button matters more than you know.